of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And we'll have a moment of silence as we remember Steve Colvin. Thank you.
Oops. Roll call, Trustee Downing.
Here.
Trustee Driscoll. Not here yet.
Yeah, must be running late.
He's right here.
Trustee Patton.
Here.
Trustee Donato.
Here.
Ryan.
Here.
And O'Malley.
Here.
And Attorney John Patterson is here.
And the mayor.
And the mayor.
He's here too. He's over here.
It's questionable whether he's all here. I don't know. All right. Okay. Start off with a few announcements. Again, we want to, board would like to congratulate the Hoosick Falls Central basketball team. We're Sarien Conference champs. That's quite a feat. We also want to congratulate the bowling team for the Adirondack League Championship. So those championships just keep on coming. No hat tonight. No, that's my favorite hat too. I like that hat. All right, and I want to just mention something. Make sure I get the. I'm just reading through the paper, so bear with me. I can't find his first name.
Levi?
No.
Oh, Andrew.
Andrew, thank
Yep.
you. Thank you. Okay, in terms of recognizing the basketball team and the bowling team, there was a quote in the paper, and I'm sorry it was in the banner, ladies, but maybe it was in the other papers too. And this from Andrew Hogue, one of the members of the team. This feels awesome. Last year they beat us in 2 tough games. It just feels great to get the win, wait for it, and make the community proud. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that terrific? Really. And again, I don't think our community can be any more proud of our students and our kids as they grow up and move forward. And if this weekend with the services that were at the Armory, the turnout particularly from students and friends, I just made everybody proud. Really did. So I think it just speaks to the goodness and all the great stuff. It's usually the great stuff that you don't see on TV. But so much of that great stuff is here all the way around. So anyway, oops, this is, okay. Just a reminder that the Minks to Sinks tag sale that was held at the Armory was quite successful, and I understand they're going to do it again. So there'll be another date coming up. So look forward to that. Want a reminder to the board and to the public that next Tuesday, the 18th, I think it's Tuesday, from 5 to 9 p.m. is Grievance Day. So we need to be here. If for some reason you can't make it, please let me know, because we do need to have a quorum.
What time?
5 o'clock from 5 to 9. Okay. And we will be meeting in here. A reminder, a lot of good things happening in this community, and one of them is property sales. And at every meeting, I ask Ann if she can give us a rundown on the properties that sold during the past month. And it's been very, very consistent. And that's all great and very, very positive. And the great majority of those properties, by the way, are single-family homes that are selling, so that's a big plus for this community. But we do have some vacant properties. And just a reminder to landlords of those vacant properties to please keep an eye on those properties. There may not be anybody living there, but we've had a number of situations where the police have been involved, either from break-ins or theft, stripping those properties, things like that. So again, we want to say to neighbors, do not put yourself in any type of potential danger, but if you see something that looks out of the ordinary and it's not quite right, go inside your house, close the windows, close the shades, and call the police. Police need to know that.
We had a complaint that I went to 2 weeks ago where exactly that happened. 2 o'clock in the morning, she looked out, she said it looked like someone was trying to start a fire. She just closed the windows, never made a phone call. The next morning, she found where there were some papers that were burnt was next to her home, and I told her, you gotta give us a call.
Yeah.
There's no reason not to call us, and she thought that, I don't wanna bother you, but that's what we're getting paid
Now,
for.
what number do you dial? You don't
On
wanna
something like
dial
that-
911.
No,
you
on
wanna-
something like that, you should dial the 911.
But let's say, like, we wanted to call you Sunday about the kids up in the house.
You should dial 911.
But my husband said that's not an emergency. He
it-
says, I don't wanna call.
But
It's-
if you dial 911, and we put this out on the web and on the TV station as well, if you dial 911, you let the dispatch officer know that it's not an emergency, but you need to speak to an officer. They will then contact that officer.
The first statement out of their mouth is this an emergency?
Well, that's it. When I had Anne Marie call, I said, will you please call for my husband because he won't call 911.
He should call, I mean, you called Ann called me.
Yeah, I know.
And then I called
down here.
911.
Yeah, well, whatever, but I said, he was getting very frustrated, and he had a toothache, and I didn't wanna.
Okay, but dial 911. That's the
We got 'em
quickest
anyway.
way.
Yeah, they
Good.
came.
They make great pizzas down there too.
Now where?
All right,
Yeah, okay.
moving right along.
Well, speaking of things out of the ordinary, you've got a Toyota pickup truck
Mhm.
next to the Rite Aid, your lights are on.
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
Huh?
Take care of that.
All right, this past snowstorm, we instituted an emergency.
I'll be back in a minute.
We instituted a snow emergency, and we put the word out. We're gonna continue to do that for every snowstorm that's 3 inches or more. The response was good. It can be better, and I think as time goes on, we're going to get the public more aware of that. But we need to have vehicles off the street so emergency vehicles can get through. And the snow emergency, just for the record, is the day after the storm. The guys are busy keeping the roads open during the storm. The day after the storm is when the emergency will kick in, okay? But I want to thank everybody for their participation and cooperation with that.
Dave, what do we do about the cars that are still parked in the snowbanks today after the storm?
We're not doing anything right now. We're giving people warnings. We are not ticketing and we're not towing unless it is a situation in the patrolman's eyes that needs to be ticketed or needs to be towed.
Well, I saw one down at Second Street or somewhere down that area without a license plate on it.
Then that should be reported. Yeah, definitely.
Does it have one plate on it, do you know?
I don't know, I noticed the front plate was gone, I didn't check, I couldn't see with the snow on the back one. Second Street or Third Street, one or the other.
Okay.
That's not a problem,
I'll
I
check.
know that during the snowstorms, the most recent one there, we spoke about not towing any of the vehicles and just doing warnings. Next year, it might change completely,
Oh, it will.
we'll
Yeah.
go check on that.
Yeah, no,
process.
I think it was very successful though. I mean, we did the ride around, I mean, Kevin did it with Neil and I went with Danny. And, I went at night from like 6 to 9 and Danny said it was the best they've had for plowing in years. It just
That's
was-
great.
Cause people cooperated. There was few that, didn't see or whatever, or just ignored it, but the majority of the people complied, and it was, it was a lot easier for those guys to work. Along that, while we're talking about that, I also want to make people aware of there is, to go along with the snow emergency, at all times, this sidewalk notice is in effect. We do have a law in the books about that, and Neil wanted me to mention that because, just so people understand that, it's the duty of the owners of the occupant of the land fronting on concrete or flag sidewalks within the limits of the village of Hoosick Falls to keep the same free and clear from snow and ice. So it's the homeowner's responsibility. The village will do it as much as we can well, right now we really don't have the equipment or the manpower to do that when we're trying to outplow and keep the streets clear. So that'd be very helpful if people can continue to do that as well.
This also brings up, if I can mention this, some interesting guidelines, because there has been some discussion online about this whole thing. Neil did a real good job explaining to us exactly how plowing happens. During the storm, they're just trying to keep the roads passable. They're just trying to get down the center of the road, making sure cars can get through so nobody gets stuck. It's the day after the storm when they come through and widen the path to get all the snow off the streets. So, whereas it might be inconvenient to wait until after the plows come in and widen the roads before you do your sidewalks, that's really the best course of action. People shovel their sidewalks and then they complain that the plows came and buried them back up again. But, you know, it's the highway department's job to keep the roads clear, and so snow is gonna end up on the sidewalks occasionally. It's just the nature of, you know, dealing with what Mother Nature gives us. So, if people can clear from, you know, their house to the street, shovel, fine, and then wait until after the plows come through to clear the sidewalks, then they won't have to shovel twice.
Okay, thank you. We've received notice here that the Time Warner services, for the most part, are gonna be increasing. So if you get your service through Time Warner, you can expect a nice little note. And hopefully it'll all work out, but just be aware. Also want to make people aware that St. Mary's Academy will be hosting a Valentine's Day Rock and Bowl event on February 15th from 7 to 11 p.m. 2 sessions of bowling at 7:30 and 9:15 at the Barbecue Recreation. There will also be a DJ karaoke. Also on March 14th through the 16th, St. Mary's will host the 3rd annual St. Patrick's Day basketball tournament. So that'll get some people interested. Also want to mention that Hoosick Falls Central is hosting a concert Thursday of this week, 7 p.m. at the high school auditorium. Performing will be Sharon Katz and the Peace Train Singers. Tickets will be sold at the door. And information has been in the papers and on the school website. Lots of announcements here. The Lions Club is sponsoring a Beat the Winter Blues night of comedy, Saturday, March 8th, from 7 to 9 at the Country Club. Also, Hoosiapalooza, the annual bed race, is scheduled for Saturday, March 1st at 12 noon. It will be starting down at Village Primary, at the doctor's offices, and ending at Wood Park. Then later in the evening is the night at the Broovies. Okay, and that's a benefit for Hathaway's Drive-In, and there's information available through Hayseed 3 for that. And Hayseed 3 will also be initiating what it's calling the Wind Chime Project. The park is going to be full of wind chimes, and that should be pretty exciting to see how all of that works out. How are you? Okay, come on in.
There's a chair over here.
There's a chair. Yeah. Want to mention that Matt Curley, the executive director at, I don't know how to pronounce that, Bob. Urswama, okay, is completing the annual report for our transfer station. And we have flyers here for the Hoosick Community Day on March 30th. That's a day down at the Times Union for the hockey game. It's a great price, $8. That includes transportation. So if you're interested, please feel free to pick up one of those.
What's the transportation?
Transportation will be provided through buses. Okay, I think that's it for announcements. Did we get them all? Okay.
Well, we got something else that you didn't get on there.
Okay.
I think it's also on the 15th. I'm trying to check my. Sweetheart Dinner and Dance at the First Baptist Church, featuring our own Stardusters. That is also
very
on.
Nice.
That is also on the 15th, Saturday the 15th.
Okay. That will be very nice. All right. People to be heard. We have Ailish Nealon on the agenda, but I don't see Ailish here, so maybe she's coming a little bit later? No? Okay. Ah, okay.
One of the emails I have said they plan to be here in March to discuss that, so I don't know.
Oh, okay, maybe it was a mistake then.
No, both sound, both I can't imagine.
All right. People to be heard. Robert, I saw you. You had something you wanted to say?
Yeah, I just wanted to stop in and, as I know, I got a meeting set up with you and the deputy in a couple of weeks, but I just wanted to thank the highway department, the police department, the water department for their support at the structure fire that we had over on Center Street.
Just for the record, since this is
boy.
being recorded,
Yeah.
who are you?
Quite the news media guy.
Who are you?
I'm the fire chief.
Okay. And your name would be?
Robert Moore.
We got it all.
Yep. Just wanted to say thank you to them guys. They're always a great help. Ed Holland also, I've been calling him like every hour during the night and everything, so I keep him on his toes too. But just wanted to thank them guys for giving us a hand.
Well, great.
And one thing I didn't get nothing to you, but February 23rd, which is a Sunday morning, we're doing a breakfast.
Pancake breakfast.
For the fire victims at the firehouse. All proceeds will go to them families. So,
Yep.
We're working on that right now.
Okay.
That's on the website.
That is on the website.
Is it on?
Yep.
Okay.
I saw that.
And again, if you get these activities into us, we'll get it up on the TV channel, which doesn't do much good right now because the TV channel's on the fritz, but, and it's a wire issue, so we're trying to get that done. But on the website, as well as on the Facebook page, and on the activities calendar here. So we want to make sure that happens. Okay, anyone else to be heard?
I just wanna step back since Alish wasn't here. This Saturday, they're also, as with the Hoosick Barn Pool project, they're building the 4x4 frames.
8 by 8.
No, they built the 8x8s already, now they're building the 4x4s.
Oh,
This-
is that right? Oh.
That's, my understanding is that they're
Oh,
building the
okay.
4x4s this Saturday. Some of us were there for the 8x8s, and it went pretty quickly, you know, many hands make light work. So, anybody who can show up on Saturday at the Armory to make the smaller canvases, that would be great.
What time, Rick?
What about,
I believe it's 9
9
to
o'clock,
1.
9 to 1, I
9
think.
to 1.
do the others need another coat of primer?
That's
coats
really
of
up to the powers that be.
Yeah.
That was just hands working. I really don't know, so.
Yeah.
Okay, I did, oh, yes.
The Sharon Katz concert at the school,
Yeah?
bearing the weather may not happen, so I would suggest people call before they,
Oh, that's right, Thursday's gonna be,
Thursday, right.
yeah,
What is it?
so.
yeah,
I
the
would call
concert
before
that's
you-
scheduled for the schools. It's gonna depend on the weather.
On the
Thank
weather.
you. Yeah. I do have one more announcement that I wanted to make. In terms of the Greenway, folks are aware that the Hoosick School actually has adopted the southern section of the Greenway. And St. Mary's Academy and the Immaculate Conception Church has adopted the northern section. So when that is all done, we will have signs on both sections recognizing both schools for those efforts, and we think it's a great thing to have happen. So I wanted to mention that as well. Okay. No one else to be heard? All right. Treasurer's report.
We are, money right now is still a little tight. It looks like it may be that way for another month or so, right until probably sometime in March. Court fines and fees were not booked in, which makes things look a little bit worse as of 4 days ago. And I talked to Denise today, and they're still not in, so it makes it look a little bit worse than what it is. So it looks like that should be taken care of at some point, I heard this week. So everything seems to be running along fine, but we're, money is just a little bit tight right now, so.
And when you say tight, in terms of cash flow?
Yes, correct, I'm sorry.
We're
In terms of cash
anticipating
flow.
revenues coming in, but again, you gotta kind of balance it out a little bit. Okay. Is there a motion to accept the treasurer's report?
Got a motion?
Bobby, second. Rick? Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion's carried. Okay, committee reports. Police report.
Yes,
Minutes?
then I'm gonna have to leave, I gotta get.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Skipped right over it. The minutes from our December meeting.
Motion?
Okay, Ben,
Sorry, my God.
and then Bob, second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That is carried. Thank you, Bob. Chief?
Okay, for the month of January to February 10th, it had 9 vehicle and traffic arrests, 3 missing person, since been located. 2 burglary reports, 7 disputes, outside agency assists were 5, 5 larcenies, 10 domestics, 4 animal complaints. We had 8 assists the fire department alarm fires that went out. And I'd like to also, since Robert's passing out thank yous, we have to thank this fire department because I know Robert and I have been out on a couple, besides the fire calls, of just alarms that are going out at 2 o'clock in the morning, and most recent one was 2 o'clock in the morning. We couldn't find a key for a back door that we were running around trying to find. So I mean, these guys go above and beyond, as well as our EMS program. So they do a great job. 6 property damage, auto accidents, 1 juvenile arrest, 3 trespassing, 1 DWI arrest, 1 drug arrest, 3 warrant arrests, 12 harassments, 1 check the welfare, 1 911 hang up, 12 EMS assists, 3 citizens assists, 2 found property, 1 sexual assault, 2 mental health, 1 endangering the welfare arrest, 2 unattended deaths, 1 noise complaint, 1 suspicious vehicle, total of 107 calls for the month.
Okay. Another day at the office. All right, thank you. Bob, D. Committee reports.
I guess I didn't get no complaints about garbage pickup last week because of the snowstorm. They pushed it
up a
again,
day.
So, and we did well last year with our recycling. We got a good sized credit for that. And I just want to let everybody know that the community warehouse is officially closed. So,
Yeah, I heard that.
What happened?
just wasn't making it. So he's working on things to try to see what we can do to bring it back if we can or not. But
Okay. That is too bad. That is too bad. Okay. Anything else, Bob?
nope, that'd
You
be
good? Jeremy? Good? Ben?
Met with Jim and Josh the other day. They were also involved with the fire at 28th Center, and they did a very good job as well, as long as with everybody else. Jim has also told me that they cut their chlorine costs down, which, you know, it's 7 cents, doesn't seem like a lot, but for the amount of chlorine that we use, it does
It
save
all
money in the
helps.
in the long run, which I like the fact that they're trying to look at all the angles to try and save the village as much money as possible. I do have a meeting with them at the end of the month to talk about next year, so that gets to the mayor by March 1st.
Okay. All right. Rick?
First of all, Hoosick River Greenway. I'd like to remind everybody again, the southern section of the trail, there is no motorized vehicles allowed on the trail. We've got evidence of four-wheelers and snowmobiles on that section of the trail. They do not belong there. The trail is clearly marked with signage. There should be no reason that anybody's on that trail other than foot traffic. Seems I gotta remind everybody, so here we go again, reminding people again.
And I did bring that up with the chief, and the police department will be taking a look at that, and we'll be monitoring that.
Okay, I attended the Hudson Hoosick Partnership meeting on the 27th of January by invite of Lauren Stevens from Hoorah, and he's attempting to up our river rating. The Hoosick River, for most of its length, has a B rating, except where it comes through Petersburg and Hoosick Falls. We have a C rating. B means contact recreation. C means non-contact recreation. Not supposed to be swimming or fishing in there. And we all know that it's really not that dangerous here. People fishing it all the time. People swimming it all the time. But it takes an effort to get that rating back up. Part of what has caused our rating is that Pownell had an issue where they were actually had sanitary storm drains going directly into the river. They've corrected that problem. Hoorah does a water quality report. Their 2012 report shows that microinvertebrate populations, which is what they base their water quality on, has increased substantially in our section of the river. So we should be able to get our rating up. There is a water assessment form that needs to be filed with the state that takes some information gathering from the powers that be in order to fill that form out and to try to get our rating up. Lauren Stevens is taking the reins of that. We are assisting in that effort. We do have a meeting next Tuesday with Gibson, Congressman Gibson, and we expect to bring up that to see if he can also help forward that initiative to help us get that information, get those forms filled out, and see if we can get our rating up. Also at that meeting, I met Erin Tobin. She is from, she's the regional director of technical and grant programs for Eastern New York and Long Island, New York State Preservation League. And she's got money, grant money, specifically for helping find new uses for industrial sites that are within a 40-mile radius of the new chip fab plant in Malta, of which we fall within that. So we're going to be looking at some of our industrial sites here that are not being used. We're going to set up a meeting with her to come by and look at them and have a talk with us to see if she can't help us out. Potentially we could get some of that grant money. If not, we can at least make the connection, and she can help us with other projects. I did ask her if buildings that aren't of an industrial heritage could also be fit. She said not within this grant program. For instance, St. Mary's at a woodblock. But she said there are other programs that they might be eligible for. So again, probably within the next 2 to 3 weeks, we hope to set up a meeting with her and with the town supervisor as well to see if we can't have her help us out with this, at least make the connection and see if we can't redevelop some of our industrial sites here. That's it.
Okay, quite a bit. Bobby? I'm sorry?
On your classification for the river, if that does go up, the village is gonna be looking at a big project at the sewer plant. Cause right now we don't disinfect. If the class of the river goes up, we're gonna have to, just so you guys are aware.
Okay, so we need to look at that and see what that entails. I would assume you've got the details and you know what's involved in
Yeah,
that?
I have it. I know we're seeing we don't have to disinfect, but if it goes up to be, I'm almost positive we are gonna have to. But I can talk with our inspector and she can put me in the right direction, but just so you guys are
Okay,
aware
now
that
that's a
that
good
could
point.
possibly happen, and that's not gonna be a cheap upgrade.
Okay, so let's find out the details on that. That's information we definitely need. Thank you, Dan. Okay, Bob?
Okay, let's see, I just wanted to thank Robert and, the fire department, and along with the rest of the other fire departments that showed up for that Center Street fire.
Yes,
I was
definitely.
there and watched you guys in action, and it was, pretty amazing to see how everything was coordinated with the different departments, and what a good job you guys did saving the other structures around there. It was, not everybody gets to go out and watch that, and you guys in action, and it was, I was impressed, and it couldn't get much colder, and it was.
Before that was a lot colder.
Yeah, I know, but it was freezing before it hit the building, it was pretty,
it was cold.
it was pretty crazy. But no, you guys did a great job, and I just wanna make sure you guys knew that. And Neil, and like Robert said, your highway crew, I was amazed the next morning when, I went to work, how passable the streets were, cause it was like 6 inches of ice when I left there at, 5 o'clock in the morning. So you guys did a great job down there to get the streets back passable once you got the okay to clear it up. And, it was, just impressive, the entire second ward. And I did ride with Danny, and I have a whole new perspective on what these guys do and go through when they're plowing during a storm. It's not, you think you see the plow driving by, they go up and down the road, and boom, that's it, and to see how many passes they have to make in order to make it really passable and for both, both lanes, is just impressive. And I know that we're also running short on salt and sand going in that storm, and so Danny was explained that, you just usually they salt after each pass, but we waited till the very end after all the roads were clear until just to make sure we weren't gonna run out. But it was pretty impressive, and I must say I have a whole new perspective of what those guys go through. Now, and that's why I'm really even more so enthused about enforcing the snow emergency and seeing it come into effect and work well, and see the people cooperate, which I think they did. The majority of them did in Second Ward anyway. And we'll deal with the finer details when we get down to it, but I think it was a good first impression to me that people were complying, so.
Great.
Thank the residents for complying as much as they did. I know my neighbors did, and they were like, "Oh, and when did that sign get put up?" And I'm like, that is not new, is it? I'm like, well, it's an old sign, but it is new. Yeah, so it was, but people paid attention. So I want to thank the residents with that as well.
Great.
So
Great.
I'll discuss the other issues when we get to. I see it's on
Okay,
the agenda.
yep.
So
All right.
okay, that's all I have.
Kevin?
I took Neil's offer as well for the ride-along in the morning, so it was a great perspective seeing what they do, and got a tour of the highway garage, some of the issues down there as well, and they had some issues with one of the trucks, and that turned out to be a short meal. And I took the truck out of service for a while, so we worked hard on that as well as dealing with the storm.
And I think it's important to make people aware, because I really wasn't either. In addition to driving and clearing the roads and all the rest of it, the trucks break down. It's machinery. And these guys don't have the luxury of just, saying, okay, call a garage and have them come fix it. If it's a mechanic, if it's a motor issue, sure, you bring it to the garage, you have it towed, whatever. But they're repairing the equipment that afternoon back at the garage, whether it's a plow or whatever, to make sure that it's usable again that evening. So there's a lot involved. It really is. So well done. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
No, it's okay. The other thing was talking to Jack Bonesteel from the county. He's with the IDA, and he was telling me the county was looking for a site, or one of their clients was looking for a site, a 30-acre site with natural gas and a rail siding, which I checked with Tony Rice at the assessor's office, and Hoosick really didn't have anything like that except for Bennington paperboard, but minus the natural gas. So we didn't really fit in that
category, right?
Right. So, but I also mentioned some of the other properties in the town and village that were up for sale, and he gave me forms for each site. And if there's any realtors that have property for sale, I can get those forms to them, and he'll have them listed. So if somebody comes to his office looking to build a factory or put a factory somewhere, he'll have that information.
Good. Good. All right. Anything else? That's it? Okay. I'm going to do something that drives her absolutely crazy. We're going to go out of order for just a little bit, okay, if we may, because we have some people that have to have other things going on this evening. So I'm going to jump down, and actually it's the last item, discussion on water agreement draft and recommendations. And I want to give people a little bit of a background. About 3 years ago now, the water agreement that had existed between the Green Heights section of the village and the town and the village expired. It was a 40-year contract, a 40-year agreement. When that expired, a number of things went by the wayside. One of them was the ability for the village to be able to enforce and collect outstanding debts around water and sewer from people who receive those services but live outside of the village. That was built into the agreement, and for some technical reasons it just wasn't there. Once the agreement terminated, that went away, which meant that other than people voluntarily responding and paying their bills, which fortunately the great majority of us do, but not everybody does, we really didn't have any kind of a mechanism to collect those funds. Now, we've been working very hard, and particularly the staff in the office have been working very hard on outstanding bills, and we've collected a good amount of money back to the village that was owed to the village. But we really do need to have an agreement in place. So with that in mind, in October, I put together a committee. And I asked this committee to look at all of the issues involving water and sewer for our community. How much does it cost? Who pays what? How are repairs covered? Why does he pay more than I pay? How come he pays less than I pay? How do we get bills paid on time? All of those kinds of things. How do people who buy property and they come in from another area, another part of the country, how do they know how the water system works? How do they know what they're going to be billed for? All of those kinds of things. So I asked a group of people to get together, and I asked 5 individuals, and 2 of them are here this evening. I selected 2 individuals who live in the village and who receive village water and sewer. And those individuals are Gary Keegan and Kyle DeGraff. Thank you. Glad Kyle's not here at the moment. No, please forgive me, Kyle, but that happens periodically. Both Kyle and Gary live in the village. I also asked 2 individuals who receive water and sewer who live outside of the village to be part of this committee. And those 2 individuals were Chris Stevens, who is not here this evening, and Mike Foster, who is here this evening. Mike lives in the Green Heights section. I then asked a 5th person, and that was Bill Cottrell. And I asked Bill to be the facilitator of the group. Bill did not have a vote. So do the math. 5 people, only 4 vote. So in order to get a consensus, at least 3 of those people have to agree on where to go and what to do. Okay? Bill's role was to keep the discussion going, to make sure we had good information, that people had their questions answered, that they got information, material, all the rest of it. About a couple of weeks ago, well, let me back up. I purposefully did not go public with the names of the individuals on the committee, so if you want a bad guy, it's me. But I did that on purpose, and the reason I did that was that I did not want these folks to come under any undue pressure or stress from neighbors, friends, relatives, whatever. They asked for information, we provided a great deal of information. Their job was not to determine how much the water is going to be this year. Their job was to come up with a methodology for looking at those kinds of things, looking at some of the different issues that we have, and trying to come up with a reasonable approach, something that could be turned into an agreement, which could then be presented to the town and have, after it's presented to this group, obviously, so that both boards would be able to review that, make recommendations, and then have an agreement that would allow the village to be made whole in those situations which, for a variety of reasons, people do not pay their bills, but the town would be able to re-levy that money through the tax process and make the village whole. That's what the village does with people who are unable to pay bills for services. We re-levy it through the county. It goes on your county tax bill. The county makes the village whole. Now, we don't get the money exactly when we need it. That's where you get into that whole cash flow thing, but we know it's coming. So I asked these folks to do that. They put together a very, very solid summary. All of you have copies of that summary. I've given that to you. You've reviewed it. You've looked. You've raised a number of questions, and we're collecting all of those questions so that we can get the answers to that and make that part of a discussion. Tonight, we are not planning on taking a vote on that agreement. Tonight was just to make public what we've done, and so that we can be thinking about this. I would like to publicly thank the 5 individuals for doing this. It wasn't easy. It wasn't easy. There was a lot of discussion. People had to agree. My one criteria for all 5 individuals, very basic, very basic. Are you a reasonable person? That means you didn't come into it with your mind made up. You could discuss things with people, but you had to come to a consensus. And they have provided that. We're not ready to go public with it yet again because it's just a draft. The board needs to look at it. We need to answer a number of questions. I've also spoken with the town supervisor to let him know that this was going on, and he is in support of this. And when we have a draft that we feel is ready and finished, and when the village attorney is able to put that in agreement form, we will present that to the town board. And hopefully, and I'm very confident that by the end of spring, we should have an agreement in place. One of the things I want to mention is that the original agreement was for 40 years. You know, like 40 years of days and nights and just going on and on across the desert. Well, 40 years seemed like a long, long time. And the recommendation, I believe, was for a 12-year agreement, and every 3 years to take a look at it to see what needs to be changed, because things do change. Our community changes. Different operations change, rules and regulations change, laws change. So we need to have something that we can look at and say, you know, this part of it's not working quite so well. Let's see if we can tweak that a little bit, change that a little bit. So they built in that opportunity. So with that as a background, and these guys really don't want to speak at all, but I need to just say, you know, thank you to them. And again, from your perspective, good, bad, ugly?
My name's Michael Foster. I live on Saratoga Street, which is, as I'm told, in the Green Heights section. Shanghai isn't a good word, but I had made a comment to the mayor when he was up at Hoosick one day, and I asked him, you know, why do I pay more for water than the folks in the village? The easy answer is I don't pay village taxes. But he called me probably 2 or 3 weeks later, and he says, you know what, I don't really have a good answer for you, so here's what I'm doing. And his explanation is very accurate. The process was of 5 reasonable people, it really was. It wasn't tit for tat bickering, it was what's likely and what's appropriate for a group of people to present to a village who's supplying a service, a commodity, if you will, to folks that don't live in the village. The process went fairly smoothly. I got to thank Bill for keeping us going in the right direction most of the time. You know, when we got to talk about Chris's trip to Thailand, that probably set us back a couple hours. But we toured the water plant and the sewer plant, and we asked for information. Some of it was easily attained. Some of it is not as easily attained. And we didn't base our discussion on wholly on full information or all the information, because some of it was just not available. So we tried to just be as reasonable as we could, and hope that from it the town and the village can agree on an appropriate agreement to provide service to the folks that will, and future folks, which is something we also talk about in new business, that provides revenue for the village, ultimately, for that wonderful water.
And we have over 100 individual users who utilize village water, and for the most part village sewer, who live outside of or operate outside of the village. And the village is responsible for the maintenance of that program. So we wanted to look at all of those kinds of things. And the other thing I wanted to add was that the original agreement, that 40-year-old document, was between the area known as Green Heights and the village and the town. But there were 4 other areas throughout the village that are just outside the village. Some on the same streets where the border just goes this way. And that was not covered. So I asked these gentlemen to take a look at this and do it all. One big package, if you will, looking at all the different issues that we have. And that's what they did. And again, I thank you very much. I appreciate the time. You didn't have to do it. And it required a consensus. And to me, it just kind of reaffirms the fact that reasonable people can sit down and resolve just about anything, if not anything, really. So thank you. And we'll be talking about this further. Again, we're going to be looking at questions that people have raised, board members, other people. We're going to get those answers. We'll be talking to John in terms of, you know, some of the different legal issues that come into play. But I think we've got a good basis. We really do. And this is really good for the community all the way around. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Night.
Thanks, Bill. Mike, thank you. Okay, back to old business. We get back into order again, all right? Quick little update on our solar plans. I received word that that NYSERDA has approved the solar panels for this building. That'll be a spring project, and as some of you will recall, we also need to replace the shingles on this roof because it's the original roof. So obviously that's one thing that'll happen first. We have a 4-month window, so there's plenty of time to do that. But that's a good thing. In terms of the solar panels up at the wastewater plant, they had some difficulty because it's going to be a ground mount. They've had some difficulty just because of the land and just what's under there and all the rest of it. So we need to wait until spring, the land softens up a little bit. But that will be a ground installation, and they've assured us that that's going to happen during the spring. So once that's done and this building is done, we'll have all 3 buildings, and we should start to see some good savings on all of this. And again, I have to just put it out there that remember how much we paid for this.
Yeah.
0.
Yeah, so, you know, we're gonna get a 30% discount. So that's a pretty good thing to have happen. Just a reminder again that the budget process is underway. The department heads know this. We're gonna be looking for their tentative budgets by March 1st. We'll be discussing the budgets as we go forward. Quick note, not quite 2 weeks ago, we had a joint meeting of the town board and the village board. And we had a presentation made by a company that does marketing, and among other things, but they also market communities. And as I've spoken with board members, and please feel free to speak up here, but I think generally the consensus was that it was a positive evening. People talked about, meeting as often as quarterly, having joint meetings. Again, not for the sake of meeting, but to go over different issues that involve both the town and the village. The marketing presentation, we had a good audience in terms of numbers. I think totally we had about 35 people in the room, so that was very, very good. I believe, again, the consensus was that people would like to hear a second presentation from someone else, just to get some options. So I've been in touch with another company. They're putting something together. And I've spoken with the town supervisor, and he is also looking forward to setting up another joint meeting. So hopefully within the next 2 weeks, we will have that going, or 3 weeks at the outside. So we'll do that again. But I think it was very positive to have both boards together. And again, it just shows what this community can do. It really does. Okay. Snow Street options, water pressure.
In December of 2013, some residents from Snow Street and surrounding areas came to our board meeting, which I was not at. At our last board meeting, the mayor asked me to take a look at some options. They had talked about pumps and installation of some $800 cost for pumps and equipment, and $400 for installation, which would help get their pressure up. Within the last few days, I've become aware of possibly 2 other options besides that, which unfortunately I didn't get to be able to follow through on. I talked to Neil. Neil, I had a meeting with yesterday. He had alerted me to a possible fix with a new water main down in that area, which would be more costly at this point than what we would talk about. If you took $1,200 times 12 or 13 people, you're talking about $15,000 if you got everybody taken care of. But then you have to worry about who's going to pay for it, what the liability is down the road, things like that. Where if you were to, say, put in a new, and correct me, Neil, if I'm wrong, a new water main, you'd be looking at fixing the problem for all. If something happened when that came about, that would be on us. Would take the onus off the village residents and possibly fix the problem. In speaking with Jim yesterday, he told me about something else, raising the water tank. Again, I don't think either one of these are minor dollar fixes, but I would like to take a look at it over the next month and come back in March when I have more information and I've been able to talk to John a little bit and give a fuller explanation. But I think looking at all three of them at the same time, I'd be better able to give more of an overview of what people might be able to look at, and maybe the board, we can talk about it, in full, and then try and make a direction and go in a certain way. And basically what I'm looking at is, and I think it's what we all look at as board members, what do we need to do to make the best sense for the village and the residents, where we do what we can to make sure that we do the best for what the village residents need, what their needs are, and what we need to do for them, and not kill the rest of the village by making it so cost prohibitive that we can't function. So I'd like to be able to take this time and look at all three options and then come back in March and present that, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, sounds reasonable.
If
Everybody
that's all right,
good?
I'm sorry, if that's okay with you.
Okay, thank you, Ben.
Thanks.
Can I just ask,
Yep.
for clarification, and maybe you don't even have this answer, but.
I may not know.
When Jim said raise the tank.
Yes.
Relocate it or raise it?
Raise it.
How do you raise it?
Well, I can't, he didn't explain that part to me. But what I was told yesterday, was that every time you raise it a foot, you increase the pressure down to the residents to make the PSI higher. But that's what I'm gonna find out about between now and the March meeting, so that I can explain it properly and sound like I'm halfway intelligent.
Tank only
so.
supplied people uphill from there.
No, the whole village.
No.
No?
That was,
I think part of one of the options is to tie into that
yeah.
and make some, it's not just a
Neil, did
question
I
of a
miss
new
anything?
main.
No, you go with the option of raising the tank, that tank goes out of service for probably $24 to $48. Because you gotta drink water and filled from the bottom up.
And also what Neil said is if we went and did what he talked about, there'd be no loss of water, that they'd be able to tie it off at certain spots and the water would continue, so there would be no loss of service.
Okay.
Which really would be, I mean, that's a great way to do it if you can't, if you don't tie up the village residents by saying they're gonna lose their water for a day or two, which would be frustrating. Again, you've gotta look at the long run and what's gonna be best for everyone when we get to that point, so.
Okay, we have some options to look at.
Yep.
So it's good.
Actually, I was thrilled that there was more than one. It's always good if you have a couple that you can look at. Now we have three, so I will get that information by March.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Questions? Update, Rick mentioned it earlier. Next week, we're going to be having a meeting here. Congressman Gibson is going to be here, so are representatives of hopefully everybody who has a say in whether or not we can do something to make the Woodbrook situation better. Going to be a lot of state agencies involved. You will recall that at one of our previous meetings, might have been December, the board passed a resolution in support of having Woodbrook declared as an inlet waterway, which opens it up for additional funding. I believe the town board, if they didn't, they were planning on acting, did they? Okay. They did the same thing at their meeting last night, so that's very, very helpful. So we'll be presenting that information. And again, the idea is that we can come up with some funding so that we can have an engineering plan done so that we can then correct the situation, not just the symptoms, but the entire situation. And we'll see where that goes. So had some good discussions around that. That's moving forward. A quick update on the LED street lamps.
When is that meeting gonna be? Can we come?
It's not a public meeting because we've got over 24 people coming in, and it's really going to be crowded. And I truly want people to be able to speak candidly. Not that people wouldn't, but just to feel as though they can speak candidly. The LED signs, the LEDs lights, we're still pursuing that. We've learned that NYSERDA can provide funding for a number of different things. Basically, if you can cut the use of your electricity, there's funds through NYSERDA that can be used for that. By making some changes in our street lamps, the ones that the village owns, we could decrease the kilowatts that are being used. And so we've had some preliminary discussions with NYSERDA, and I still think we should go forward. I hope that the board's going to support that. We're not ready to get into anything specific tonight, but the good news is that there's funding there available, so if we were to go forward with the streetlights that the village owns, we could be reimbursed for that cost, as well as having a savings in terms of electricity that's used.
Reducing the use of electricity, or reducing the use of electricity off the grid?
No, this would be the less
Because
electricity used.
Okay.
LEDs require
I
less
didn't know if there
wattage.
was a specific, if it's off the grid, because if we're installing all these solar panels, that
No,
should put us in a better position.
I know,
for
we've talked about that. They're not quite there yet.
Okay.
This is just to reduce the amount of
Electricity in
electricity
general.
used.
Okay.
Yeah. And, you know, once we can get some things clarified, we've talked with Neil, and we're gonna do some pilot ones if you want, 4 or 5 lights or a few more throughout the village. Just because not all LED light bulbs are the same, you might save some money, but if they're not bright enough, you're not.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, so we want to make sure they're powerful enough to provide light and safety. So that's going on. Signs. Kevin, you wanted to speak to signs, and I know I happen to have a colored version of some of the signs that we've been looking at.
Been working with Flying Cow Designs in Manchester on the signs themselves. Ellen Scott's been in the loop, Phil Leonard, Jim Martinez as well has been taking a look at them, giving their opinions on that. And we've kind of come to a consensus on which design we'd like. One of the holdups is Grandma Bosa's Properties, and I talked to Barb Sussman, who's a local art appraiser from West Hoosick, and she's in New York City quite often. And she went to Grandma Bosa's Properties and spoke to Jane Clear and Hildegard Batchert, who are the directors of the Grandma Bosa's Properties. And she told them that we're not trying to make money on this. We're just a small community. So she talked to them and came back and told me, we'll talk to them again about the price. The original price was, to use Grandma Bosa's name, was $5,000 for 10 years. So I said, we really can't afford that. How about $2,500 for 10 years, which is what, $250 for 10 years per year, and they agreed to that. But of course, that would be, we'd need board approval and approval from the rest of the board for that.
Okay.
So that's where we stand right now. And also, she forwarded me 5 or 6 different pictures that Grandma Bosa's painted of Hoosick Falls, which to use in the painting itself. And the other, not an issue, but thing that's not completed yet is the name we would use on the paintings. Grandma Bosa's Village, Grandma Bosa's Discovery Village, or Grandma Bosa's Country. So we'd have to pick one of those to put on the signs as well.
Oh, if we were going to go that route, yeah? Okay, well, again, thank you, and to everybody else.
I have a question.
Oh, the
Is
other-
that usage only for the signs?
Yes, for the signs only. If you used it for something else, you need to pay.
Renegotiate.
Should be negotiated.
Okay. All
But
right.
the other issue is whether to go hand carved, which is more expensive, which is the one that the people that I talk to prefer, and it's more raised letters on the sign itself that are gold leaf or whatever they are on the paint, the picture, and the painting itself would be a print of some sort that's affixed to the sign. So the whole thing is hand carved, just the lettering itself, which is $2,695 for the hand carved each. The standard sign's about $600 each, so it's a big difference.
Big difference. And we have checked, by the way, with our insurance company to make sure that they could be, that they would be insured. And so we've.
How high in the air are you gonna put these?
Well, the signs that we're looking at, you're either 4x4s or 5x5. He recommends 5x5, the bigger the better, because
It's harder
the
to get.
picture, you need to see it.
They don't walk away.
The current signs are like 3x3,
Mhm.
And that's
3x2.
the prices for the 5x5s?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, again, thank you for all of the work. Something just to think about, and I'm not trying to throw a monkey wrench into the works here at all, but I know that, you know, we're putting forth some effort in terms of the barn quilts. So maybe something just for the committee and the group that you're working with to think about is as either an alternative or on the back of the sign or whatever, I don't know. You know, maybe we could do also something with the barn quilts if that's something that wanted to be considered. I have no idea really how that's gonna work, but I think we ought to at least take a look at it and see. But I think overall, the quality of the signs, they look terrific.
Yeah.
And, you know, we need to I think that it'll be a tremendous message to the community when we have signs like this.
Well, the hope is too that people would read the sign, see Grandma Moses, maybe stop and take a look at the mural.
Sure.
Go up to her gravesite, stop at the coffee shop or the diner or somewhere. And
Yeah, you want
spend
that
some
little
money
bit of
in
a
the
hook.
village, yeah.
So it sounds like we are well on our way in terms of looking at this. So maybe we can come to some decisions at next month's meeting and take a look and see from there.
Yep.
Sound reasonable? Okay, again, thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, new business. All right, something that did not make the agenda and it was supposed to, and that is my fault, we just didn't do it, is that, and John, I know you're here, so I'm sorry about this, I should have said something earlier, but I'm going to suggest that we table the opening of the bid on our diesel fuel, just because some information has come in. I want to make sure through the county and state contracts and things like that, that we're getting the best possible price that we can get. So we need to just look at that, and we've got a little bit of time. So I would ask for a motion to table that for the evening. Ben, is there a second? Yes? Okay, Jeremy, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? All right, that motion's carried. We'll definitely get to it
See you next month.
next time around. Sorry, I should have gotten that one sooner for you.
That's all right. I didn't have nothing better to do.
All right. That's why we come to meetings. We got nothing better to do. I like it. I like it. Okay, Ann, I'm not sure what this is. Is this a typo?
Fair.
Okay.
It's a resolution, motion for resolution.
4.
It's a class account, they're just changing some of the, format of it, the services, if you wanna read this whole thing.
Yeah, nobody minds if I read this whole thing.
Cooperative Liquid Asset Security System, we do belong to the class, asset, and it's just a cooperative resolution.
Okay, let me
Allow
just.
them to make the changes
Okay.
that we agree.
I apologize. I just don't have the background.
Yeah, Denise has read those.
Okay, whereas the New York General Municipal Law such and such empowers municipal corporations defined under Article such and such to include school district, boards of cooperative educational services, counties, cities, towns, and villages, and districts to enter into, amend, cancel, and terminate agreements for the performance among themselves or one for the other of their respective functions, powers, duties on a cooperative or contract basis. Whereas the Village of Hoosick Falls wishes to invest certain of its available investment funds in cooperation with other corporations or other districts pursuant to this cooperative agreement. Okay, whereas the village wishes to assure the safety and liquidity of its funds. Key contact. Okay, I don't doubt the
We
intent
have
here.
Yeah, it's just an amendment to it, that's all. We've already got a resolution for the class accounts.
We've done that already?
This is just amending some of the parts of it, yes. Oh,
Okay, and is there a time frame on this? I see, it says March 14th, but I don't see, okay. Is anyone else familiar with
No.
this? Okay.
To make a motion.
John, are you familiar?
Table it till next month?
Yeah, could we just so that we,
Consider that my
Through
motion.
it, right.
Yeah.
I'll second that.
okay. I'm sorry, okay, Jeremy, first motion, Ben,
I'll
second.
Yep.
Although, any further discussion?
Can we get a copy of it so we can look at it, so
Yeah.
14th is after the next meeting anyway,
Yeah.
so.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Okay, and let's just hold it, and maybe we'll get a copy off to John too, just to make sure everything's covered that way. I just didn't understand it, and obviously everybody
Yeah,
else.
it's an investment account.
Okay, all right. Okay. We've talked a little bit about the marketing and grant cycle. Again, we're gonna be asking a second marketing group to come and do a joint presentation so that we can get a better feel and have a little comparison in terms of what's involved. We are well within the time frame, so we have the time to do this, but the state grant cycle kicks in the summer, so we need to have everything done by then. So we'll be moving forward
I'm
with
pretty
that.
happy with a couple of the examples that were given in the portfolio of the company you quoted.
Campbell Associates, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
So I'm looking forward to that meeting.
Good, yep. Well, again, then we'll have something to look at. And the other company, by the way, is getting cost estimates to me. I just haven't received them yet. So we'll have that to look at as well. Okay. Wastewater treatment plant received a copy of its annual inspection. And I would say it was an A+, Dan?
Yep, she's happy with everything.
And that really complements, a few months ago, we had a similar report from the water treatment plant. So the water coming in, everything's going the way that it should, and the way that it's going out is going the way that it should. Clean as a whistle, if you get my meaning. And it seems to be working pretty well, so that's what should be. They pointed out a couple of things in terms of long-term maintenance, things that we need to be looking at, and those things we'll be following up on anyway. But again, we really have a class act when it comes to water and wastewater, both coming in and coming out. So we want to make sure it continues to do that. So thank you to everybody involved in that. Okay. And we have the adjustment on an account. If you can give the background on that.
Yeah, we had one house that just sold. We were charging as a two-family. It's a one-family, so there's an adjustment for the August bill and the November bill, $44 each.
So we had it down as a two-family and
Correct.
charging it as such. But in
Right.
fact, it's a one-family. Okay, so looking for.
Motion to adjust it?
Jeremy, second was Bobby. Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion's carried. Thank you. Occasionally, and I know you'll find, we'll all find this hard to believe, but occasionally when someone pays their bills with a check, sometimes that check is made out of rubber.
No.
Does not happen a lot, but it does happen. And as we look at that, currently we're set up when that happens to charge a $25 fee for a check that's not good, for a bounce check, if you will. $25 is a pretty minimal amount. It's a lot of money if you don't have it, but in terms of a bounce check fee, we have seen that there have been situations where people continue to, they'll pay the $25, assuming they even pay that. So what I would like to suggest is that we increase that amount to something that will catch people's attention. I thought $1 million was good, but people thought that was just a bit excessive. But I think what we're looking for, and John, you know, you could be helpful here. Again, we don't want to be excessive, but we were thinking maybe around $75. If someone bounces a check, that would get my attention.
It would, but that's, you'd have to, probably the best thing to do is find out what the local banks charge.
They charge about just under between $40 and $50.
They're expensive.
They're expensive, but, you know, if you double the price and it started to get people's attention, that might be the best way to do it. 75 seems like quite a bit.
Okay, so if we were to go to 50, do you think that would be reasonable?
I think that would be reasonable.
Okay. Again, it does not happen a lot, but it does happen. So would there be a motion for $50?
Motion?
Ben? Bob Downing, second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion is carried.
We're no longer taking checks from the Pogo Bank and Trust Company.
The Pogo Bank and Trust Company, I like that. Okay. Back in November, Linda Vanderhyde from Rensselaer County, the Rensselaer County Planning Office came, and we had a meeting where she did a presentation, and it's centered around our zoning rules and regulations. And for the last 2 or 3 years, we've been looking at that. And one of the suggestions was that we put together a committee that can look at our zoning regulations and affect some changes and make recommendations to the board. And we're really gonna start with page 1 of the zoning regulations and go right through to the end. And the last time that was done, from page 1 to page 80 or whatever it turns out to be, was in 1977. The time before that was 1947. So I think we're overdue. So I have appointed a committee, and I want to present those names to the board. And all of these people have said they would be more than willing to do this. And I want to thank them for that. But for the record, I have asked AJ Messerschmidt, who lives in the village. AJ is an attorney. I've asked Gail Leva, who's involved with our planning and zoning board, and she will be representing the realtor's perspective. That's important to have. Wayne Wilson lives up on High Street. Wayne is a surveyor and an engineer. He has indicated he'd be willing to do this. Jim Monahan, a business owner and someone who's well known to the community. He would also be interested in doing this. Mike Danforth. Mike's been very involved with the Greenway Committee. He is also consented to do this. And Kendall Baker. Now, it looks like we've got 2 realtors, and we do, but Kendall's role is going to be one of a landlord. We have a lot of rental properties in the village, and we need to have the perspective of someone who sees that and does that, okay, and profits by that, so that we can have, I think, a good, well-rounded group to make recommendations. This is the group. We would add to that group in terms of an advisory capacity. I would ask John to be available in terms of legal issues that might come up. I would ask Ed to be available around code issues, code questions, things like that. And I would like to have someone from the board, and Kevin, you've been involved with the zoning for a bit now. I would like to have you involved in an advisory capacity as well. And what we're looking for, when Linda spoke, she said it's a 2-year process, minimally. That's a long time. It's a long time to hold people's interest. It really is. As I've spoken with some of the different marketing groups and people that get involved in this kind of thing, what I've learned is that some of these groups also work around zoning. And they do facilitation, if you will, with zoning groups. And the time frame can be cut from 2 years to 1 year. Now, do they do this for free? Nope. No. And I've asked for some costs so that we could have an idea. I've not received them as yet. Okay. There are a number of communities that Brunswick, for example, is currently going through a process to update all of their zoning. I think Skodak did it recently, or may still be doing it now. But this is something that we need to do. As soon as we get some quotes in terms of prices, in terms of that, I will bring that back to the board and ask that we consider, if it's reasonable, to have someone come in and facilitate and move this process along quicker than just a year. But I think we have a good basis here with this committee, and I would ask that the board approve this committee so that we can get started on this. Would someone be willing to make a motion?
Make the motion.
Second.
Kevin, thank you. Jeremy, second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that's carried. Thank you. So we've done that. Zoning Review Committee. All right, last item on the agenda is a backhoe and a skid steer. Let's talk about the backhoe first. Bob, you want to get into that, if you would, please?
Sure. Well, we, our backhoe is a 2000, the one we currently have is, I think, what, 2002 or 1, Neil?
2001.
1, okay. So it's 12 years old, and we had a discussion with the Capital Tractor, Dave and I and Neil, talked to the gentleman, and they offering to give us a very good trade-in. You know, they're talking a new backhoe is $53,000 with the trade-in. We've had it for 12 years, the current one. We don't know how much longer we'd get a trade-in worth that value of $32,000. I mean, we have some money in Neil's highway budget left, and, we would really like to look into pursuing it further and, going forward and buying this backhoe. It's a state contract, so you're not gonna get a better price anywhere. And, the state contract on the backhoe is good through 2015, but our fear about waiting to the end of 2014 or early 15 is that that trade-in is not gonna be 32,000 at that time. You know, it's gonna be another year or two older, and 12 years is pretty old as it is to get that much life out of a backhoe that we need every time we have a water break, whatever. That's one of the main pieces of equipment we use in the highway. So we really don't want to be down and out without that. But so Dave and I discussed, and Neil and with the gentleman, and I think it's a good opportunity for us. And but then at the same time, he brought up we're trying to look into the revitalizing the downtown, and an issue is keeping the sidewalks clear for the businesses that are downtown. And we'd like to see the main, all the sidewalks clear if we could. So at the same time, Capital Tractor also has a skid steer, which is actually could be used year-round piece of equipment. It has multi-use. It has a brush. It has a snow blower, and it has a bucket attachment. A snow blower attachment would be very valuable to us in times like the winter we've had this year, and to keep the main sidewalks clear, Route 22 and all the downtown businesses, it would be great. That cost of this piece of equipment is approximately $55,000 to round it out. It's $54,869. They would give us a trade-in for that our current Kubota tractor of like $7,300. So we're looking at approximately $47,500 for that. You add the two of those together, we're about just about $50,000 or $100,000, maybe a little bit over $100,000 combined. We do not have the money in the budget for that, and I don't think it would behoove us if we did to go out and spend that type of money on two pieces of equipment in the same year. But
Can I just interject something? Because I can hear the deep sighs and breaths. We are not presenting this for a vote this evening.
This is discussion only.
Just discussion only, so that we can take a look at this. And there are some other ways of going about this as well in terms of payment. And obviously Ben mentioned that, we cash flow right now, so you don't want to exacerbate that situation.
Bobby, how does that snow blower work if you're downtown and you know where to blow it? That's what I wanna know.
This is
They
the
blow it
neat
into a
part.
truck.
You have
Blows
nowhere
into
to
a
blow
truck.
it, but on 22 and you can't do that.
They blow it into a truck.
Goes into a truck.
Oh, go get a truck?
Yeah.
Oh, you got the big,
The skid steer is gonna come with two snowshoes. One's for the process of just getting sidewalks clean. And if we're blowing in downtown, you're blowing into the curb line, you're not blowing back into buildings. Then you come through with a different chute that you can shoot it right up into the back of a dump truck.
it's like the old thing we had many years ago.
Still got it, if you wanna use it.
That's before my time.
What was the snowblower you were using the other day?
We borrowed the schools.
Oh, okay. Did a good job. They did Main Street, I think, for the first time, and that was great, because the kids can walk up the street or on the sidewalk where they go skiing.
A couple of things with this. One, in terms of the backhoe, just to jump back to that, no pun intended here. But with the backhoe, the trade-in value is probably the highest it's going to be. And the price is probably not going to go down over the next year or two. Usually doesn't work that way. So if we want to take advantage of a high trade-in value, that's something to look at. Again, this is not being presented for a vote this evening at all.
That being
Just
said,
to
will
look
they
at
hold the
that.
trade value till April?
Yeah, they will.
We've discussed that,
Yeah.
Neil's talked to him, and the salesman's very willing to work with us.
And
He
this is
knows
a
we're
new-
not gonna do it
Brand
tonight,
new.
or
With the second piece, the skid, again, as Bobby has said, we're trying to make a commitment to the community that we're business friendly and that we're customer friendly and all of those kinds of things. You need the right kind of equipment. Now, the key here, and this is something that both Bobby and I insisted on, was that anything that we wanted to do should not be a specialized piece of equipment that's only used.
For one season.
Yeah, this is versatile, and it can be used for a number of different things, and also different accessories can be rented.
Right.
If you needed something for the day, rather than purchasing an accessory, it can be rented. And depending on what the job is, you know, that becomes very cost effective as well.
Pat McCartus has got about a dozen of them that he invented himself.
Probably gonna use a couple tonight.
Chances are.
But anyway, we're looking at different options in terms of the funding and all of that. But I just wanted to get it out to give you a chance to look at it. I've asked the finance committee to look at it. We don't have to buy them today, we don't have to buy them tomorrow. But, you know, we wanna take a look and make intelligent purchases, and again, give a message to the community that, hey, we're definitely here to make good things happen. Having the sidewalks cleared makes a huge difference, a huge difference. So, I'm sure there'll be more questions. As you have them, please forward them to either myself or to
Right,
Bobby,
we're open for
to Neil.
discussion, like I said, we're just wanting to throw it out there tonight so everybody knows what we're looking into, and we understand, you know, about the money issue, so we just wanna make sure everybody's aware of it.
So, with that said, what did I forget?
Nothing.
Nothing? All right.
Motion to close.
Is there anything else to bring before the board? If not, is there a motion to adjourn? Boy, that'd get up there
Second.
fast. Oh, Jeremy.
Jeremy's daughter.
Just like the
Ben,
sandwich.
Ben seconded.
She made
Any
that about
further
half an hour.
discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? See you next time. Again, if you're interested in the Hoosick Community Day, we have some flyers right here.
Silent
Are you looking?
assassin.
Are you looking?
And